Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be here with you back home in Indiana, as they say. And my mother still lives just down the road, so it's always great to be near here. And I've visited this facility before, but not recently. So that may be true of you about Corning. Maybe you've been there, but not recently. You are so lucky to have Charles as your new leader. I have worked with him only for a few years, but he has so many creative ideas and wonderful things and inspiration that he is for the people that he leads. So I congratulate you on selecting Charles, and I think you've got a great future ahead. So I wanted to spend time talking with you tonight about the Corning Museum of Glass, and I hope that I can entice you to visit. So my first question is, have you visited? How many people here have been to the Corning? Excellent. Okay, good, good. My job is to get all of you to raise your hand by the end. And how many of you have been since 2001? Okay, much smaller group. All right, good. So I hope the things that you will see tonight will help you to understand a little bit about the journey and where we have moved to with an outstanding museum that was sort of a light under a little bushel basket, which has now really, I think, blossomed in a lot of different ways. Maintained that scholarship, maintained that educational focus, and yet become much more attractive to a larger group of people to attend. Those of you who've been there know that Corning, New York is a very small town. It's largely a company town, as they say. Corning Incorporated, formerly Corning Glassworks, was and is the primary employer in that area. There are about 10,000 people in that town. If you draw a little circle, about 15 minutes, you can get up to about 30,000 people. So it's a very small place. 420,000 people visited last year to the Corning Museum of Glass in this little teeny tiny town. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. Okay, here we go. This is the front of the building of the Corning Museum of Glass. We have the world's largest collection of the art, history, and science of glass. The museum was created 63 years ago. It's easy for me to remember because it was the year I was created. So 63 years ago, I think good things happened. And one of them was this museum. And it was started at the 100th anniversary of Corning Incorporated. They wanted to do something special. They wanted to celebrate the material of glass. And so they decided to create a museum. And the only requirement they had was that you could not collect anything made by Corning Incorporated. This was to be a museum about the material of glass and to celebrate the material of glass. And so that's how it started. It's had major expansions. When I came to the museum in 1999, we were just undergoing a $75 million expansion. It was my job to make sure it didn't cost $175 million, that it only stayed in budget, and it really began to do a major facelift on the organization, and we are completing at the end of this year an additional expansion, as Charles said. It's among the 30 most visited museums in the United States, and it has about the 20th largest budget in the United States, so it's a pretty big place. We have nearly 50,000 objects that expand the time frame of glass. 3,500 years of glassmaking, extraordinary collection. The best, the largest, the deepest. If you like glass, you've got to come to the Corning Museum of Glass. We have live hot glass show demonstrations daily, all day long, in the summer every 20 minutes, so that we ensure that people get to see glass being made. We have a studio where we teach glassmaking, both for visitor experience or week-long classes and 2-week classes. That facility is relatively new. It's only about 12 years old. And we have the Library of Record for Congress called the Raycal Library. It is a library about glass materials. As I said, last year we had 420,000 visitors. 54% of them were like you and I. They were individuals and families who drove up in cars and came to the facility. The rest came primarily internationally, and they came by motor coach. They came on a bus, and there were a lot of people who emptied out at the same time to visit the facility. 4% came from schools. Our average family visit, as Charles said, is 4.5 hours. It used to be about 2 hours. It's now 4.5. It's really great to have somebody stay 4.5, but you all go to museums all the time. You get tired after a couple hours, right? You need different kinds of diversions. So I think if you want to increase the time frame that people are going to stay there, you have to think about how you refresh them through that process so that they want to be in the facility for a while. How do you feed them? Everything has to be thought about as if you're going to stay for a longer period of time. And last but not least, we have a lot of people who we would call infrequent museum goers. Many of them are first-time museum goers. So it's a special audience. Our job is to make sure that they want to go to a second museum. That's our job. You're going to have such a great experience here, you can't wait to go to another museum. So that's how we think about the visitor. So there are, as I said, two major audiences, families and international tour groups. These are families in the Science Gallery and the international tour group sitting in the bleachers to watch a hot glass show. Where are the families coming? They're coming primarily from the Northeast. Of that 71% from the Northeast, about 20% of those are from New York State. They are also coming from every state in the Union. We collect the zip codes. It's very important to know where they're coming from. And so they're coming from every state in the Union. And 10% are coming internationally. On the right-hand side, you see the places where people are coming from internationally. Most of our international tours are from China. So people are coming to New York City. We have the happy coincidence of being halfway to Niagara Falls. That helps a lot. But you really do have to market to people to get them to come anywhere. So, but we are on the way to Niagara Falls, and we work with the tour groups to help them know that this is a place where they could come and visit. So what do we do? Well, it seems pretty obvious, right? We tell the world about glass. But the first year and a half I was there, we were doing a lot of things besides that. And one of the great things about strategy is it tells you what to do and what not to do, right? So once we all coalesced on what we do is to tell the world about glass, it cleared up our programming, our retail, our shows, everything. And so that is what we do. We tell the world about glass. What do we offer? This was very important. This concept of what will be the offering for the visitor. Just like a product that you might market. We are a museum. We want visitors to come. What do we have to offer to them? We have the opportunity for them to see glass. They expect that. They expect to see galleries. We also have the opportunity for them to see glass being made. And that was something that we knew that they wanted to see. It's increasingly easier to see glass being made now. It used to be really, really hard to see glass being made. You could think about it. Where would you go and watch glass being made? So this is really interesting to people. Make glass yourself. And if you're really interested in glass, research glass, either in the library, in our conservation group, by really understanding from the resources that we have there. So here are examples of seeing glass, both the art, the history, and the science of glass. See glass being made, and see a live glass-making demonstration. I will talk a little bit later about our journey and really understanding who wanted to come and visit. But we're very lucky that we actually put a live glass-making demonstration in, because we really didn't know that our customer, our visitor, really wanted to see that. We put in a small space about the size of this podium area I'm standing on with a few seats. It was jam-packed all the time, all the time. And since then, we have expanded and commandeered space all over the facility. We've invented new equipment that does not off-gas and be a problem for the building. But that decision to have live glass-making demonstrations was a major reason that people wanted to come and visit. So understanding why they want to visit is really important. And then somebody said, can't we make glass? Well, I don't know, can we? I mean, the visitors are only here for a little while. How are we going to do that? So from this came the studio and the ability to have the visitor come and have an hour experience making glass. If they're older, it can be really a hot glass experience. If they're younger, then it's assembling glass parts or working with sandblasting, something that's safer. So you have to think about the audience again, relative to what you want to offer. And research glass. We have a wonderful library, tremendous facility for anybody who's really interested in glass. Our librarians are available to answer questions over the internet, all kinds of opportunities to work in depth in glass. The museum is a big economic factor within our region. One that, again, really was not organized to help the region. And those of you who know New York upstate know that it needs all the help it can get, right, in terms of business opportunities. This is a major economic driver for the region. We employ a lot of people. We have 150 regular staff, and we have 170 temporary staff, primarily from May until the end of September. We generate about $3 million in annual tax revenue, and we are part of a $140 million museum tourist business upstate. So this is really important to the area, and once people understand that more, they want to help you. What do we offer globally? We work very hard to reach out across the world through our digital offering. In fact, IMA helped us with this process. You helped us to develop our latest website. For that, I'm very thankful. It was a great job. And so if you've visited the website, I hope you will, CMOG, corningmuseumofglass.org, you will be able to research the entire collection online. When the IMA helped us to put that new website in, our objective was to put the entire collection online. Before that, it had been a visitor website. If you want to come and visit, here are the things you can do. Buy tickets, here's what your visit would be like. Now, it really represents the museum in depth, and I'm very, very proud of that accomplishment. People come from all over the world through that website. This is a map. I'm not sure you can see it from the back, but basically it's a density map. And there are only two places that have not visited the Corning Museum of Glass, in the center of Africa and Greenland. Every other place in the world, people have visited the Corning Museum of Glass, at least digitally. They have come, looked at the collection, or gotten some information about glass through that website. We had over 1.2 million visitors this past year through that. We also do a lot of mobile applications. Those mobile applications are in gallery in the same way that you have that I saw today. And also online, so that you can access those either way as a visitor experience. We have live streaming that we do of people who are teaching at the studio. So they will come, very famous glass artist, Lino Tagliapietra or somebody like that from Italy. Very well known if you're in the glass contemporary world. Not everybody gets to see this man. We videotape this, we live stream it, and then we catalog it. We have the ability through our YouTube channel to have people watch those artist videos. We had over 4 million people watching this past year. So again, to tell the world about glass, that's our mission. We also reach out with our hot glass mobile equipment. And we reach out in a number of different ways. And so these are programs that we have developed over this last decade. Essentially, 400,000 people see us in Corning, New York, and 400,000 people saw us last year in different venues that we went to. We were on the road. We were in Paris, right outside the Louvre, with glass demonstration equipment, showing people and working with designers, making products, glass lab products, interesting experiments in glass, so that people could get some understanding of glass. We also work at sea, and I'll show you a little bit of that. On the road, these are just pictures of places we've been. The Statue of Liberty, we were taking our portable equipment to Governor's Island, working with the Cooper Hewitt, and having glass demonstrations on Governor's Island. We're going to Knoxville to the museum there in a couple of months. So we go a lot of different places. We hope to come here. We've been to the Children's Museum in Indianapolis. We would love to come here and be part of your new glass effort that you are reinstalling. We also blow glass at sea. Now, just in case you think I'm like totally crazy, I said no to this idea at first. I said, this is crazy, guys. This is real, I mean, this is nuts. And then I assigned our controller to go with our marketing person to meet with Celebrity Cruise because I knew she would say no too. She came back and said, Marie, you can't believe this. They're so safety conscious, they sound like us. They're so interested in doing this. The customer profile is the same. They have a lot of customers from the Northeast. It's like, okay, great, good. So we actually blow glass on 3 ships for Celebrity Cruise on their luxury liners, which is the top of their line. We have, this is a picture of actually blowing glass. They built all the equipment. They pay for all the people who are there. It's about 45 jobs, basically, for artists who spend 3 months at sea and then come back and make their own work. So they are very happy to have that kind of employment. Wonderful, wonderful experience. One of my favorite stories is one of the guys who went on there. It's actually the guy, I think, in the middle. He'd never had a passport. He'd never been out of the country. He's now seen many countries in the world. So there are a lot of ways that things happen and you grow and develop and let people know. Okay, so Charles mentioned that we are opening a new space. We are. It's about 2 acres of space that will open in December. It's probably what it'll look like in December too. Sort of a soft opening and then getting ready for the high season in 2015. This facility is between 2 buildings. It's between our admissions lobby and the former factory of Steuben. And it will walk down that entire way, if you will. 27,000 square feet contemporary gallery, and then exhibition space and a 500-seat hot glass show. It'll be very much like seeing a wonderful contemporary Soho gallery or something, right? 23 high-foot ceilings and lots of beautiful contemporary glass pieces. Window that overlooks the garden, and then the hot glass show facility. And that's the ventilator building or a hot glass making facility dedicated for us. So that's a little bit about it. I figured, Charles asked me to go through how'd you get there. It's hard to go through how'd you get there if you don't know what you're talking about, right? So I thought maybe that would give you at least a grounding on who we are and what we do. It didn't always look like this. 15 years ago, it was quite a different place. There was a steady decline in visitation. If you lived near the museum, you didn't want to set foot in the museum. It was an ivory tower, a bunch of scholars who were really good at what they do, but not a place that welcomed people to come in as much as it does now. There were 3 separate organizations all under one roof. That roof was called the Glass Center. It was a sort of a community center, and it had the museum under one wing, and then it had retail and the Steuben factory on the other, both divisions of Corning Incorporated, so quite separate organizations. I came when we were doing a massive turnaround, and we were building a new facility. And the consultant who'd been working with the company at that time was then saying to the company, if you rehab this, if you put a lot of money into the museum, people will come. Those of us in the museum world know that that's not true, right? Build all kinds of things, maybe you get 6 months of glory, but it's real work to actually get people to come. So that was what happened. We had to begin to do that real work to get people to come. Our Glass Center merged as one organization. And as Charles mentioned, my background was human resources, so when I came, a lot of what I was doing was trying to get people to come together as one team, have one benefits program, have one plan for what they were going to do for work. I mean, bring together an organization into one facility. And the museum rules had to apply because it was a not-for-profit then. And so we started managing retail, started managing food service, started managing all the things that you guys manage here. but had not been managed by the museum at all up to that time period. And as I said, we got a standalone glass demonstration space, thank goodness, because people come primarily in the summer to see this facility. It's beautiful weather upstate. They come in summer. A glass factory traditionally shuts its doors in August, right? So people were coming to see glass being made, the highest month of visitation a year, and the factory's closed. So they can't see any glass making. So you're disappointing your customer immediately, right? So through this renovation, we ended up with standalone glassmaking demonstration space. Very important to our journey. But it didn't work. We had $75 million we spent and not enough people coming. So what do? Well, first you decide what you are doing. As I said, you're going to be telling the world about glass. You're going to also be a bright spot in the community. You want to be a place that the community wants to come and visit. And your whole entire team has to decide that you want to be very friendly. You want to treat people as if they're on vacation, and you're happy that they came and are spending some time with you. From my background in business, it's very important to have a plan and to execute that plan. So we had a plan for success. These were things I had learned at Corning, and it was easy to bring them over. It's no different than what museums do, but it's bringing it together very tightly in terms of a plan with operational goals, values, and execution tactics for how you're going to accomplish that. It's all pretty straightforward stuff, but it was a little bit new to run the facility and the organization that way. And then we paid a lot of attention to people, place, and programs. It's really easy to add people and be totally insufficient in the funds that they need to actually execute your job. So my feeling is be very tight on headcount and make sure that you have the operating program monies to ensure that the people who are there can actually have money to be able to do work. I think this is also very important. People often ask me about why we have so much data. This part of it, I think, is much more common in museums now, but the feedback I've gotten over the last decade is that that was a totally new idea of having data about your visitors, data about your customers, data about how long they stay, what zip codes they're from, when did they decide to come, was it the last 24 hours, or was it 2 weeks ago, or was it 6 months ago, where did they come from the day before? All these kinds of data points that really give you an understanding of your visitor and your customer. And so we do daily surveys. We survey every 10th person who comes into the facility all year long. We have a book about this thick that comes out about that data every quarter. We pour through that data. If you fill out a survey form, I am so happy and so impressed because it's not a short survey form. I mean, people sit there and they tell us all kinds of things about what they liked, what they didn't like, if our restrooms weren't clean enough, you know, all kinds of stuff they will tell you on these visitor surveys. We give them a little sun catcher. If they complete the survey, we give them a small gift. And so this has been very useful to us. What we learned is that we have really 6 different types of customers throughout the year. Depends on the time of the year. Cornell graduation brings us a lot of parents from Cornell. Fall leaf peepers don't usually have kids with them. I mean, you know, you begin to segment what do your customers look like and what programs are appropriate to run at certain times of the year then to support that. So those survey results really became our Bible for how to operate, and we manage with that data all the time, but driving towards the educational mission. That is critical. We're an educational institution, so everything we do has to revolve around that. We drove programs to try to get people to come. We wanted to be, as I said, a place where local people would want to come. And we wanted to understand why they weren't coming. What would motivate them to come? What would make the museum more approachable? What would make the museum more interesting to them? So we developed a series of programs. We started small, some of them failed, some of them worked, and we built an understanding from that. We really work to have an audience engagement 361 days a year. We're closed 4 days a year. We're open 361 days. And we are constantly trying to look at how we engage through programs and through our exhibits, through our demonstrations, through your walk through the campus, through the food you eat, everything. So when I look back and say, well, what really drove that change and what made it more viable and how did you get 420,000 people there? And one of the things we did is we decided to join the tourism business. I mean, it's plain and simple, it's so obvious, but there is a big tourism business, right? Draw a circle around Indianapolis, and there are a lot of people who could drive 2 hours and come to this facility. Chicago, Louisville, you know, all kinds of, and we did the same thing. Philadelphia, Cleveland, Toronto, New York, Washington, D.C. How do you go after people to come to be a destination where they would want to visit? We created what's become, for us, 2300 degrees, but a lot of museums have first nighters on Fridays. This was the equivalent. It was the third Thursday in the winter, band, lots of fun, glass making demonstrations, usually a name artist. The first one we had, I remember Rob Cassetti and I saying, we think this will work. First one we had, there were 75 people there, and 35 of them were staff. We're like, oh dear, this wasn't exactly what we had planned. But Rob is a really good creative person, and he said, it's okay, it'll be all right. We're gonna get the word out. And so really, word of mouth. The next one we had 250. The next one we had 500. We regularly now, for 10 years, have had 3,000 people every time we have these events. 3,000 people show up. It's amazing. People come 2, 3, 4 hours away. They'll stay all night. They'll be with us from 5:30 to 7:30. That's all it is, 5:30 to 7:30. And then they'll go out and have dinner someplace else or see friends, whatever. So it's really interesting for us. We talked about the second one. We talked about the third one, segmenting our customers. Really thinking about the every asset you have. As I took the tour around with Charles today, I was really stunned with all the opportunities that are here that I hadn't quite remembered. So thinking about every single possibility and then prioritizing, because you'll come up with way more ideas than you actually have time or ability or money. But making sure that everything is thought about in how can it be part of this educational mission here. Kids and teens, free. We charge for the museum. We have always charged for the museum. We didn't have enough kids in the early days. It was sort of kids, glass, those don't go together. If you're a parent, you're very clear about that, right? So how are we going to overcome this idea that kids should be visiting a glass museum? The easy way is to make it free. For us, we didn't have that many kids, and so having a free experience was an easy test, wasn't going to cost us much money. What happened is we all of a sudden started getting more kids. I mean, within a few months, we started getting more kids, which brought in more adults, which kept our per capitas going up even higher. So what turned out to be sort of a free decision had wonderful financial support for the museum. We also began to test that further. We had a growing group of enthusiastic staff members who said, ooh, free is good. Free is really working. Maybe we can just drive our per capitas by having all free. And we did official, Smith marketing, kind of marketing research with both museum goers and people who were not, people who were visiting us and people who were not. And we said, okay, if it's all free, what do you think? And they said, doesn't sound like a place I want to visit if it's all free. It's probably not worth much, even though it was a museum. So we were headed down a, education ought to be free path. And we pulled up short and said, okay, kids need to be in here free. So I know this is a topic that's really prevalent. All the museum people are, all weed up about this topic right now. So it's an interesting topic to explore and think about what works for you. I think running some experiments is really helpful, and there are a lot of ways to do that. Obviously, data is your friend in that situation, doing some marketing analysis before you really decide that you want to make a change, if you do. And then the web. We talked a lot about that. The web has helped us enormously. You can buy tickets online, you can schedule your hot glass online, you can see about your visit online, you can research glass online, you can see all of the pieces we have, that we have photographs of. But you know that we have a piece, even if we don't have a photograph. So, you know, take what you have and go with it. Go for it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Get it out there. These are the marketing mantras we operate with. Anybody who has marketing background knows this chapter and verse. But you have to not only have awareness or a desire to someday get to the Empire State Building, right? Or the Corning Museum of Glass. You've got to create urgency to come now. And this is something that we spend a lot of time on. Trying to think about, okay, what will create urgency? And it's amazing. Small things can create urgency. It doesn't have to be exhibitions. Exhibitions sometimes create urgency. Sometimes they're a scholarly endeavor and don't drive your attendance at all. We actually work on a lot of exhibitions that we don't expect to drive attendance. We expect them to add to the body of richness of the Corning Museum of Glass and the glass field. And what we know is that we are going to be responsible to drive attendance by all the other things that we do associated with the exhibition, but not the exhibition itself. So exhibitions is another place where spending time thinking about that is an interesting topic. Okay, so I'm almost done. The results, I think the facts do speak for themselves. We've had a lot of success over the last decade. Our attendance has doubled. Our revenues have quadrupled. Our staff has doubled. So I think the results of the museum are from a lot of work from a tremendous staff of people who had clear goals, but they had a lot of wonderful ideas. And they worked very hard on precise execution. Whatever they do it really, really well. And so those things are very important, and we would not be here without a strong support from Corning Incorporated. Corning supplies 70% of the funding for the museum. We earn the other 30%, largely from earned revenue. We have a teeny tiny development program. It's something we need to do a much better job at. And so basically the other 30% we're earning the old-fashioned way. Okay, that's it. That's the Corning Museum of Glass. I hope I've at least enticed you to think about putting it on your travel program for this next year.
Thank you, Marie. It's fascinating, even though I'm on your board, to see this extraordinary transition that y'all have made. And I was just thinking, when was the first time I went to the Corning Museum of Glass? I think it was in 1984, when I was a graduate student at Winterthur as a decorative arts curator. And it's hard to believe that is the Corning Museum of Glass that I visited and was so excited about, but from a sort of scholarly perspective.
Right.
And it was a very inward place. Did the best exhibitions in the world on glass, has the best collection, had the best collection then, it still does. What Corning supplies to you is our endowment. So in many ways, they're very, very similar and have come from a similar place in which we've been a traditional institution. We've had great curators through the years who work here today. We have a library. We value scholarship and education and publication. But to see the transformation, what I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more, perhaps from a personal point of view, is what were the first couple of years like when you came and, must have in the back of your mind having, being running Stu Ben and having a business background, said some things are going to have to change, but we still want to be a scholarly place, we still want to have a library and privilege all of that, but how are we going to get there? I mean, that's sort of where we are at the moment, really thinking about what's gonna do that for us.
Right, right.
So what did it feel like for you and
Right.
the staff?
It was exciting, but it was also tough. It was very tough. I mean, coming from the business background, many of the museum professionals were very concerned about what I was going to do, how commercial was I going to make this place, how respectful would I be of the scholarship and the academic side of the program. So that was hard. There were trustees who weren't sure. They were like, whoa, we're not sure about this. So it was, the first couple of years was a lot of talking, a lot of enthusiasm for a brand new facility. So you had that going. A lot of talking to Corning as your major donor, Corning Incorporated, making sure that they were really coming. What did they want to see more of? And it became very clear. They wanted more people to come and visit the facility. We want more people to come. Okay, we'll work on that then. So the first couple of years were hard. And you had to have, personally, you needed fortitude. You needed to stay the course. Those who know me well know, you know, I like to get stuff done. I like to be with a group of people who want to get stuff done. And so you stay the course, even though you get criticism from everybody. And you try to build support. And you build that support in all those areas as well. Corning Incorporated, trustees, staff. And with staff, it's extremely important to listen to the staff and to implement ideas that they have. And some work and some don't. And if, you know, it's a good person and they have a not so good idea, well, they're not going to get fired, you know. Let's try again. Let's try to figure out what we learned from it. So the first, and then I was running Steuben too, which was in a mess. So it was an interesting time period. I used to say all the things I learned in HR, I put to work those first 4 years, really trying to build teams, make friends, have clear goals, understand how teams operate, understand how to manage change. Change is, everybody who reads all this stuff, I mean, it's a 5 to 7 year problem, any good institutional change. It's a 5 to 7 year problem if you do it well. If not, it's a 10-year problem. So you've got to set your mind with that. You're not going to get everything done the first 24 months. You got to get the tough stuff done the first 24 months. But then after that, you got to take time and build that coalition to come with you. And reward the people who do well in that regard, and celebrate with them. You know, even the 2,300 degrees, these were great celebrations. To have 1,000 people show up in the museum that first time, people were like, oh, wow, wow, people want to be here, right? I didn't show you customer satisfaction ratings. We really work hard on customer sat ratings. They run at 9 on a 10-point scale. Sometimes they go down to 8.6 or 7. We get all nervous. What is going on? What happened? Sometimes we get lucky and the economy's good and everybody's happy when they come and we get it up to 9.2, 3, or 4. But we are really focused on what it takes to make somebody feel great while they're in our facility.